Good morning, everybody out there. It is Friday, June the 2nd. I am heading down 26 East toward Charleston. It is about 7 a.m. and I thought we could talk about thyroid testing today on Western Healthcare Exposed. So I know a lot of you out there probably have thyroid problems or have at least had your thyroid checked. Most of the time, when you go to the doctor and get your thyroid checked, you get a TSH level. Maybe you get a T4 if you're lucky. And that, unfortunately, is kind of the way we're trained to do thyroid testing. Is you check a TSH, and if it looks good, then we assume your thyroid's okay. Well, the problem with that is TSH really isn't even a thyroid hormone. It does stand for thyroid stimulating hormone, but it's actually a pituitary hormone. And it's secreted from the pituitary gland to tell your thyroid to make thyroid hormone. And it's probably the worst screening test to look for thyroid problems. But most of the time, that's all you get. So you really need to have a complete thyroid panel when you're looking for thyroid problems. You need to have your TSH checked. You need to have a T4 checked, T3, reverse T3, and antibody levels. And those together, when you look at them, give you a much better picture of what your thyroid's doing. I'm not sure where that came from as far as medical training goes. I was in that group for years and years. Only over the last year or so have I really learned the proper way to do thyroid testing. Just about everybody that comes to our office that's had their thyroid checked before only have that one or maybe those two labs checked. But the problem is your TSH, there's a reference range on all these labs that you get. And there's a low end and a high end, and as long as you're technically in that reference range, that lab value is okay. Well, that's not really true. You want your TSH to be less than 2. The upper end of that range goes up to 4.5 or 5 on some labs. So if your doctor looks at your TSH and it says it's 4, then they're like, oh, your thyroid's fine, don't worry about it. That's not necessarily the case. So you get all those labs checked, and then you can get a lot better idea of what's going on with your thyroid. Now, most people are on Synthroid if they have hypothyroidism or low thyroid. Well, Synthroid is only T4, and most of the time, I'd say probably 90+% of the time, you really need more than just T4. You need some T3 with it, because T4 is your inactive thyroid hormone. And once the thyroid gland secretes that, which it is probably about 85% of what's secreted, but once it's made by the thyroid and put out in the body, your liver and all other organs will convert that into T3, which is your active thyroid hormone. And if you're under a lot of stress, you're on certain medications, like maybe you're on steroids or you're on beta blockers, or maybe you've got a high exposure to environmental toxins or something like that, that T4 is going to be pushed into reverse T3 as opposed to T3. And the reverse T3 is kind of like a brake on your thyroid system, so that will keep your thyroid from working properly. But anyway, that's kind of a brief rundown of thyroid testing and how it is done in an inaccurate way pretty much across the United States. Some of it may be doctors' faults because they aren't necessarily educating themselves, which I guess is a category I fell into. Some of it is probably due to training, and that's just kind of how we've always done stuff, and nobody really thinks anything about it. But even, sending patients from our office to endocrinologists who are supposed to be the experts in endocrine glands and the thyroid's an endocrine gland, I had those patients come back and tell me that they were told they didn't need T3, didn't need to be tested. Their thyroid levels for T3 didn't need to be tested. The reverse T3 didn't need to be tested. And they have been taken off their T3 medications and just left on T4, which is really not appropriate. And that's, you know, that can be a whole nother talk, is about the lack of help we get from medical specialists. That could probably be an hour talk. But anyway, if you got hypothyroidism or low thyroid, you're on Synthroid, you think there may be something wrong with your thyroid, you're having constipation issues or hair loss or dry skin or excessive fatigue, you can't lose weight, things like that, go get your thyroid tested. And when you go, ask to have a full thyroid panel, TSH, free T3, free T4, reverse T3, TPO antibodies, and thyroglobulin antibodies. And if your doctor won't do that, I might suggest trying to find another doctor that would do it, because it needs to be done. It's not the right way to do it just to check a TSH or a TSH and a T4, but that's what everybody's doing. But anyway, just a little info on what goes on with thyroid testing and what you can do to maybe try to combat that, and a little bit about medications. But if you have comments or questions, please leave them. And if not, I will see you next time on Western Healthcare Exposed. Y'all have a good Friday. See you.